and you ultimately lose the wood because you lose the reason why you bought the wood in the first place. You get a color, but it's paint almost now. So they put all these layers on, and then they put the clear coat on, and they don't understand why the color's not there. They miss it. And it's really easy if you look at it. If you think about what I'm saying. What drives color? It's not what you put on the wood. The most important thing to control is the undertone of the wood. You get a piece of wood wet, it shows you what it is. So if you don't control that first, you'll never get a color.
Yeah, and I would say that's a foreign concept to 99.9% of all painters that I know, finishers I know. That is not something that ever occurred to me until we spoke. The idea that, because as a painter, that's what I do. I take pigmented liquids and I put them on things to change the color of them.
Right.
And so the idea that I would change the color of the substrate chemically first is a foreign concept. But I want to go back to waxes because we didn't go deep enough on waxes.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask a question: how do you apply waxes? First of all, how does one apply wax?
So you can actually there are several ways. So if it's a really hard wax, you can liquefy the wax. So to liquefy the wax, the easiest way is to put a wax in like a can, like a
why would you use a hard wax versus a soft wax?
Because it will be more durable.
It's more durable afterwards. Okay.
Yeah. So like when you use beeswax has a low melting point. So literally, if you take a piece table, say, and put beeswax on it, and on a hot summer day, you have your arms on that tabletop, it'll cloud the surface because your body heat is enough to soften the wax. So beeswax is a great wax, but you need to adjust it or add other waxes to it to account for that softness or that low melting point. So you want a harder wax. It doesn't have to be carnauba wax, but that is the hardest one. There's several waxes, and so to liquefy wax, you get like a boiler, a double boiler, like a pot of water. You stick a metal can in the water with the wax in the can so it stays dry. And it heats it and softens it and liquefies it. That's one way to put it on. Or
and then you spray it through your airless sprayer, right?
No, you do not. You definitely don't want to put that through your sprayer. You put it on. You put it on, and honestly,
with like a rag. You put it on with a rag, a microfiber.
Yeah, the rag.
Something like that. Just wipe it on.
Or a brush. The key to putting a wax on is actually not to put it on evenly. I know that sounds weird, but I know.
What?
Is to not put it on evenly.
Explain that.
Because when you put it on evenly, it looks like a coating. You're putting it on the entire surface, but you're putting it on unevenly. Okay? It's a look. It's a look.
So you're putting it on by hand, giving it a organic, man-made feel.
Right. Okay. And it's a layer of texture and depth that you're adding. It's a look. And when you touch a surface that has wax on it, it's clear that there's wax on it.
It feels nice.
Yeah, it's not smooth. It's smooth, but it's not like a coating where you can just slide your hand on a rag and there's no friction. Wax has a certain look to it, and it's a beautiful look. And
it's a beautiful look.
It is, and you can tint wax. You can add tint to it.
Yep, I'm doing that tomorrow. I have a sample that we're trying to. The client had some Venetian or some lime plaster done, and they want it to be a different color, a little darker. And so rather than have a whole new thing done, I don't know who did it, but rather than do the whole thing, we're going to try to tint some wax and put some tinted wax on it to shade that a little bit. We'll see how.
So what are you going to use for pigment?
Oh,
that matters.
Man.
It matters.
All I have is Mixol.
Mixols are perfect, dude. Mixols are what
Use like a needle and put like a needle's worth of pigment.
yes. Mixols are fantastic pigments because here why. They are in glycol. And because they're in glycol, they're miscible in everything except polyester. That is it. You can put it in epoxy. You can put it in water, alcohol, shellac, lacquer, all of them. It'll all go in. And they're concentrated. I love Mixols.
They're very concentrated though, right?
Yeah,
So
they're very concentrated.
that's what I have to be careful with.
Right. Yeah. Very, very strong.
Versus trans tints. Now let's just go there now.
Trans tints are dyes. Those are not pigments.
Okay.
And trans tints are also in glycol. Glycol is a great medium. And depending on, because there's actually food grade glycol, and then there's solvent glycol, which is like propylene glycol, which is your antifreeze. That's a form of glycol. And so, yeah, trans tints are powdered dyes in glycol. I mean, Jeff Jewett makes them, and trust me, I mean, when he figured out how to make trans tints, that's probably where he got, he's made lots of money from trans tint dyes.
It's not cheap to buy those trans tints.
No, but when you look at a 2-ounce bottle, can make a
lifetime, right?
It's a half a gallon of dye, strong dye. You can make 2 gallons of dye if it's light colors. So
yeah, it'll last you a
they're
lifetime.
great colors. Yeah. But when I will tell you this, if you're going to do a large project, don't buy them from the store. Go to Jeff Jewett's site, Homestead Finishing, and you can buy large bottles of trans tint. You don't have to get a 2-ounce jar. You can get like a 16-ounce jar. And it's like $15 for every 2 ounces instead of 25. Yeah. So it matters. Or, again, you can make your own, but that's a totally different animal.
All right, so let's talk about Odie's wax. And then we'll talk about Odie's oil. Somebody said
Odie's wax. Yeah.
Let's talk about, does Odie's make a wax too?
They make a wax.
All right, let's talk about Odie's wax.
So,
do you use it much? Do you know much about it? I
know a lot about Odie's oil. I mean, if you look on their website, on their color, that's me. So our Odie's is a hard oil. And a hard oil is a more viscous oil. And it's a mixture of oil and wax. Now, there's lots of other companies that play in that space. But here's my problem.
Let's just talk about the ones we like, and we'll talk about generally, we won't need to name names.
Okay.
Generally, there's another type of this stuff you don't like. I don't want to cut you off. We'll go down that route.
No, I'm not going to say names.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I won't say names.
I'm not saying names. I'm just saying that the other companies out there use 2 components. And this is important. It really is. So when you sell a product and you say that it's natural and safe, and it's not, it really pisses me off. And I'm not going to say names because, people, but buyer beware. The second component of these hard oils is isocyanate. And if you have underlying respiratory issues and you touch this stuff, you can die. So I have a buddy in California whose wife had an allergic reaction to this, and they didn't understand what happened. And they ended up in the emergency room, and she almost died from being exposed to the second component, the activator of this.
So generally, we want to stay away from 2-part hard oils.
Yes. Look, I mean, it's a catalyst. And if you're going to use them, understand it is not safe. And you definitely need to use a respirator, and you definitely need to be wearing gloves. Uh, you know, it just irritates the hell out of me. But that's a different
I
story,
used it,
Zach.
and that stuff smells.
Oh my God, man.
So let's just say use Odie's oil. If you're going to use a hard oil,
Yes.
why would one want to use a hard oil?
Okay, so it's a different animal. So for a lot of furniture builders, finishing is a nightmare for them. It is.
Yeah,
And so
they're carpenters.
right. I mean, they build, it's like this. You build a fantastic piece of art. And then you go to Menard or you go to the hardware store and buy, uh, some cheap polyurethane and put it on. And now
Poly shades. Let's put some poly shades on
our Minwax. I'm going to get some Minwax stain. I'm getting the Minwax
polyurethane in one.
Oh my God, man.
How could you beat it? What are we talking about? Isn't that the best?
Don't get me going, dude. Anyway, so when those came out, they had these other people that are two-component hard oils had great colors that we're not used to seeing in the United States or in North America.
Some crazy colors.
Yeah, and a lot of them are reactive color. They are. But, so you could put it on one coat, but you can't put more than one coat on. And you can only sand your wood to 150 grit, which is nothing. So you have a dead looking piece of wood. So great. And it doesn't last. But again,
I put it on my Vero Metal River table.
Yeah, how'd that look for you?
This two-component product.
Yeah.
I will say it's lasting. I beat the crap out of that table. It's lasting. Like, I used their dye stain first, and I used their natural two-component hard oil clear. I used the hard oil because I didn't want a film build. There's no film build to it. It looks like natural wood. It feels kind of like natural wood. It's got texture to it. It's actually stood the test of time. I was impressed, but knowing what I know now, Odie's is what if I'm going to use a hard oil, I'm going to use Odie's. And let's talk about the good one. We've talked about the bad one.
Okay.
We don't recommend two-component hard oils.
Right.
What's so awesome about Odie's, and what are all the amazing things we can do with it?
So Odie's is a one component. I don't know what the oil is made out of because James is super secretive about it. James is the guy that owns Odie's oil. And I believe it's tung oil based is my guess. But you can use Odie's inside and out. And I'll tell you the first time I ever used it, and I've told people this many times, he sent me a jar because I didn't believe him. And I had a piece of sycamore. I didn't even sand. It's just laying.
As one does. One has pieces of sycamore.
Well, okay. Well, it's me.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
It's me.
I couldn't help it.
Okay, I had a piece of sycamore, quartered sycamore, mind you. Anyway, I opened the jar. I didn't even stir it. I rubbed it on. I let it sit on there for maybe 15 minutes, and I wiped it off, and I went to work. And I came home, long day, and I knew it was going to rain. It was a Friday. It was going to rain that night and all through the weekend. And I said, okay, I'm going to give it a test. I stuck it on the hood of my truck. And on a Friday night, and it started pouring, and it rained all the way till Monday morning. So, 2.5 days of solid rain. And I said, it's got to be destroyed. So I go out Monday morning, and I look on the top of my truck, and this thing looks fantastic. The water beat it. It's not cloudy. It did no damage to it. any other coating, I'm telling you, would be white. I wiped off the water, and I was shocked. I was literally shocked.
So the beauty of hard oil, again, is it's non-film forming,
It's
right?
non-film forming, so it fills the cells. It not just the pores. It soaks into the cell level, and so it does get hard, and it adds protection, but it's not a film.
So there are plenty of designers and architects right now who freaking love that, right? They
Right.
all want to coat the wood and not change what it looks like. As many finishers probably have had that request. I
Sure.
want the wood to look the same way it looks right now when it's coated and
Well,
protected.
but when you put an oil on there, it darkens it.
It does a little, but they want
But
that, and you have to tell them. But
right. But you can,
that's a good point.
if you
I
put,
butchered that.
well, again, but if you want to use a hard oil and not change the color of the wood, it's possible. And I do this all the time. And when I teach color again, one of the most important things about color is using white. If you use white in a small enough ratio, you can add white pigment to Odie's, put Odie's on, even though it's an oil, it will not change the color of the wood. It looks like it's just
And so
nothing.
the wood will look and feel almost like there's nothing on it, but it
Right,
will be protected.
right,
So that's why we want to use a hard oil.
right, right. But again, there are coatings out there too, those 2K urethanes that are the naturals from the Italians that you can put on that looks like there's nothing on there. But it's a film.
But there's a film. Yeah.
But there's a film. So that's the difference. But yeah, I mean, Odie's is a great product. And when you put pigments in it, then you can get fantastic colors. So yeah, I've used it on concrete. You can take concrete, put it on concrete, let it cure. If you let it cure for a week, if you can do that before it gets wet, and that's asking a lot. I've poured a glass of wine on concrete, and it just beads up.
And we talked about when we were talking about that table many months ago.
Yep.
We were also talking about how you could change the sheen by sanding the wood to higher grits, right? If you use that unnamed 2-part oil, they are very specific about not sanding above 150 grit.
Right. And so
which
again,
leaves a very, very matte finish.
Yes. And when you say that you have a true molecular bond, if you have a true molecular bond, you could sand it to 10,000 grit if you wanted to, and it would still bond. So what you have at 150 is a mechanical bond.
And that's a great point. So you can sand wood up to 8,000.
Yep.
And then apply Odie's oil.
Yep.
And have a non-film forming
gloss
coating with the gloss.
Yes.
Boom.
Yes.
Everyone should go home and try that. I'm gonna have to order some Odie's oil
because
we all buy stock in Odie's.
It's amazing that you can do that. You know, like when I did that piece of wood, that walnut sample that I cut the barrel metal into, the grooves, that client wanted the surface to be matte, but the metal to be polished. That's a different story, but I have taken wood and gone to 10,000 grit.
So that was my issue with my metal river table.
Yeah.
That was why I used a hard oil. I wanted to be able to polish the metal.
Yeah.
And have I love that juxtaposition of metal in a river with natural wood next to metal. And I was like, oh, I have this awesome idea of like all this stuff. And I had to figure out how to take and polish metal and yet have a matte. And I love the idea of a non-film forming coating on my wood next to it.
Sure.
So I used the hard oil. But I didn't know at the time about Odie's and the differences.
Right. So when you play with the metal, you have to polish the metal first. You
Yep.
can't do it the other way around. And so, like that sample that I did, that I polished the wood to 8,000 because the metal was in it. Now, essentially, you have a surface that's like concrete when it's polished that high. And when you
Yep.
put water on it, it just beads up. So you have to figure out a way to get through. And what you need to do to get through the film is to flash it. So you take water and alcohol because you have to cut the surface tension. And when you put the alcohol in it, it penetrates that film. And so now it lowers the surface tension, and then you can get it flat.
So
That's
if
what
I
I
was
did.
going to do an 8,000 grit polish on wood before
Yep.
Odie's, I would want to use a mixture of water and alcohol first before I did the Odie's.
If you no, so if you want to sand it to 8,000, you can put the Odie straight on top. It'll stay 8,000. My problem was the client wanted the walnut surface
Oh, yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
be matte
I see.
and the metal to be
So the water popped the
gloss.
grain, broke the surface tension, and allowed a more matte finish.
Right, right. Even
Okay.
though I polished it to 8,000 first.
Yeah, so when I polished my river, I had to be insanely meticulous to
Yeah,
not polish the wood and only polish the metal. That was a big pain in the butt. It
that
would have
was a
been
huge
nice.
pain in the butt, man.
Yeah, it would have been nice. Luckily, it was just wide enough where a 3-inch RO90 in rip
Right,
mode could polish.
right,
Uh, had it been a smaller surface, I would have been really screwed
right.
because I didn't know about the Odies.
Right, and that's another thing too. We talk about too is the metal. I mean, I think the metal and the wood together is just wow. It's so amazing. When
It's
I was
huge
in
right now. It's
when I
huge at
was
the high end, man.
oh, when I was at your place in last November, and we had that guy that came over with the Shaper Origin and cut your logo into that cookie. I mean,
Yeah,
that just
I have that someplace.
oh my God, man. I mean,
Where is it?
so in early next year, I'm going to package smaller containers of Vero, specifically marketed to wood slab guys, so that they can pour a river
Yep,
table
you
of
have to
metal.
be careful because my river table has failed.
Yeah,
I have a chunk of metal that I can pull out of my river table.
but you used the binder. I'm talking if you used the filler, the thicker version.
I used the
That way,
thicker version, but I went 50. No, I
you
don't know what
want
I
the
did. 50
thinner.
50?
You poured the first one.
No,
The
I blended them.
Did you?
I blended them 50 50.
Okay, I did. I tell you what, I did a solid filler, and I have a buddy about a half an hour north of me who does slab tables, and we took the thicker one, and he said, I want to pour in the cracks, in the fissures of this table as a piece of elm, and then I want to be able to take it to my router table and cut and level this thing. And I was like, I don't know, man. That's pretty hard. So I went up there, we mixed it. I said, wait 3 days. 3 days later, he took a router table to it and cut it off, and this thing sheared off like it was fantastic. So it's possible. I don't think it's necessary to do a 3-inch pour. It's a waste of
Yeah,
money.
I used clear epoxy, and I did an epoxy pour with clear. It was an insane thing. Anyone who saw that video,
Right.
I filled caulking. I used caulking
Yeah,
to
to
fill
control
in
it.
the
Sure.
edges so that
Yep.
it looked like it was a solid piece of river.
Right.
So I put caulking in there, then I did a clear, built the clear up, and then I put a coating of metal around the clear on all sides.
Right.
For the
And
record,
so,
I want all credit for being the first person to do a metal river table.
okay, Zach.
That was all
I'll
me,
put
and
you.
I'll take all the credit. I want a copyright. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, honestly, I mean it was at your place, the first time we ever put ferro metal into wood. The Shaper Origin thing, that's when the light bulb went off for me about what was possible, because honestly, when you can take metal and sand it so that it looks like it melds into the wood,
Yeah.
that's a
Okay,
game changer,
so
man.
we have to go back now because people are asking, and I realize we just like dove into the middle of Vero metal,
Yeah.
and we need to like come back to the surface, and we need to wade into the Vero metal.
Okay.
So what is Vero metal?
So Vero metal is a liquid metal. So it is a product that can be sprayed, brushed, troweled, poured onto a surface, onto
You
virtually.
keep giving this description. I'm gonna go get some, and we'll show the
Okay.
people.
Okay. It can be sprayed on, brushed, troweled, and poured onto a substrate. And the substrate can be virtually anything. I mean, it could be styrofoam as long as you put the right primer on it. And then when you put it on there, then you have to sand and polish the surface. So you can take a piece of wood and turn it into metal,
Like this piece of wood.
like that piece of wood. There you go.
Which
There it is, man.
there is a gorgeous piece of walnut in the little cracks. We have brass or gold.
It was gold. Yep.
That was gold in those cracks. And then we used that awesome router that our friend brought, and
Yep.
we traced my logo
Yep.
and did a liquid pour. So, like you were saying, it comes with a bag of powder.
Yep.
This is powdered metal. It's atomized metal, right?
Yeah, it's atomized metal. It's pretty amazing how they do it. So, I mean, they liquefy metal, and they basically shoot this liquid metal into a field of either water or water and oil. And because it's the right velocity or heat or whatever, when it hits the water or the water oil mix, it atomizes into these, 25 to 90 micron sizes.
Wait, I thought that they were you just crushed my dreams. I thought they were spraying liquid metal through like the way we spray paint through an airless tip and it atomizes.
No, it goes through water or oil.
I thought they were spraying liquid metal into the air. It was atomizing through a tip and then landing in the water.
No.
Uh,
No. It has
it's
to
still
shear.
cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's way cool.
I was thinking they had like some carbon spray tip, like we have spray tips. And they
Right.
were blasting liquid metal through that spray tip and atomizing it. That's how I've always envisioned it.
Well, that's what I was told. So
We're
anyway,
gonna have to take a tour of the factory now.
it's pretty fascinating, and there's the thing that I like about Vero Metal is that you can make custom metals. There's some variables and some limitations. And some of the limitations that I've run into is getting it light enough. So even like the gun smoke or the tin, did you find the tin? Did you ever find it? Oh, bummer, man. Okay, well, I'll have to dig up
I'm gonna
some.
have to. We have to get more because the client
Yeah,
just sent me the sample to match. But I don't know. Somehow we lost a pound of tin someplace in the world.
well, we got to call the post office and say, where the hell did you leave it? So anyway, uh, so um, to get it super light is a that's just a variable that's really hard to achieve. But that said, that thing I posted today, that handrail that you saw, was that unbelievable? That was Gunsmoke, that wood handrail with that volute?
The whole time I'm looking at that handrail, I'm like, how in the freak did they spray this, and how in the freak did they polish this?
I don't know,
I'm
man.
dying. I have to know. Like, I will get to the bottom of it. I'm gonna
Yeah,
call
I
Robert
mean,
and be like,
it
I
is.
want to talk to the guy who did that handrail because
It's a guy. It's a guy, and I know the guy. He's in the Netherlands. I've chatted with him on on IG, and he has pretty good English, but he struggles a little bit. But yeah,
That guy's
it's
my hero.
phenomenal. Oh my God. And
Everyone go to the Vero page and look at that handrail. I don't have a clue how he did it.
but
It's
that's
so
just to go to
impressive.
show you what is possible.
Yeah.
You think about when you take a piece of wood and prep it smooth enough that you can shoot that on there and then polish it up. I mean, I've been able to polish some pretty amazing, crazy things as of late, and really, taking the deep dive in different sanding medias and different pieces of equipment, and able to get some amazing things. And not everybody wants high polished stuff like the table you just did. That
Yeah.
was not super high sheen, but a cool look. And you're right. When you take a picture with a phone,
Metal
it
does
just
not photograph well.
it does not photograph. It doesn't translate color at all. It's
No.
really hard, really hard. So
I was looking at the camera, and then I was looking at my phone. I was looking at my camera, and then I was looking at my phone, and then I was looking at the piece, and they look completely different.
yeah, they're totally different. And I have a good phone, and I know you do too. And you specifically bought it before that camera, and nope, doesn't matter.
It's
So
just it's bizarre how it works, but
yeah, it totally
yeah.
kills
So Vero
reflective.
metal is a powdered metal that can be. It's a very niche thing for some people who are asking Mickey. Yeah, this is high level decorative, like faux finish decorative coating type of thing. It's we're well over $100 a square foot to apply this stuff. It's expensive. It's very difficult to learn. Like this is not something you just like pick it up tomorrow and make that
No,
handrail. Like my God.
no, no. The handrail that's some high level stuff. I'm not going to say it isn't, but again, when you think about straight sheet metal, the per square foot cost of the metal and thin gauge sheet metal is probably similar, but you still have to polish it. But when you get into complicated shapes like that voluted handrail, I mean, to produce that in metal, I mean, that little piece there would probably be 10 grand.
Yeah.
If you could even do it, it would have to be cast.
Yeah.
So when you can take
And you can do the
shapes,
texture. So
yeah, and the texture tool too.
we're going to be. I'm waiting to hear back from the client, but I'm pretty sure we're doing a kitchen island in Gunsmoke and maybe a little bit of manganese.
Okay.
And the rendering that they sent, they want this like it's beautiful. It's easy for us. It's like an orange peel texture. They want an orange peel texture in their metal. That's heaven to Dan's ears and to my ears.
Absolutely,
Right?
man. Because it's polyester.
Yeah.
Polyester doesn't flow out. There's an inherent orange peel, so you can actually just set the air up to make it more so.
We just spray poorly and we get a magical finish that everyone loves.
Absolutely, that's dream stuff there, man.
It's when
Because
they say we want it polished smooth, those copper samples that we're doing. It's quite an art to polishing this metal. There's no question. It is not like paint. It is not like metal. It's its own thing.
Right.
And the lengths that we have gone to figure out and how outside the box you have to be in trying to solve the problem it's very interesting.
It is, but again, when you're talking about gloss, playing with paint, that is a totally different skill set that most guys who play with paint can't even conceptualize. I mean, that's next level stuff. And that, like, I have people that are like, teach me how to polish. I'm like, I can't teach you how to polish in 2 days. I mean, there's no way. No way. I can give you the basics, but there's so many variables here that you have to account for before you even spray to get to that gloss. So, yeah, but I think Vero is a blast to play with. And what I like about it most, I think the best part of it is that you can use it outside. And the fact that you can use it outside, and as long as you don't put a clear coat on it, you never have to touch it again. I mean, to be able to take an average front door and make it bronze or brass or copper
I'm
and not
foaming
be
at
able
the
to tell.
mouth to do an exterior door.
Oh
We
my
have
God.
I have a bunch of garage door samples from my buddy at Designer Garage Door. I have like Dan has like 6 or 7 of them downstairs, all prepped, primed, and we're gonna be spraying them out with different metals. Because my goal this year is to sell a garage door in metal or a front door in metal.
If you
And
go after like an oil rub bronze, you don't need to polish it to a mirror because that's
yeah,
why it costs you a
I'm
hundred
not
bucks
trying
a
to
square
go for
foot.
that. I'm not trying to go for. I'm trying to keep people away from the high polished smooth, and,
Yeah, because
and because you
it's a
can go
nightmare.
get sheet metal, and it's a nightmare. The stakes are way too high. You burn through one spot, you're over.
Yeah,
Um, but the ability to put a unique texture and a unique blend of colors, like that table we just finished, is 75% manganese, 25% bronze.
yeah,
I have a bunch of cabinets we're doing or not a bunch, but a fair set of cabinets for a designer. And the sample that they finally signed off on, 6 samples later, of all the different ratios of brass, bronze, and manganese, I
yeah.
think we finally landed on 75% bronze, or no, nickel silver. It's 25% nickel silver, 75% bronze. It's a
Ooh,
beautiful color.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Beautiful color. They were like, oh, it's too yellow. It's not yellow enough. And I'm sitting there, we're mixing different ratios of metals to get them what they want. But
Right,
I do love the fact that you don't have to put a top coat on, right?
right. No,
It's
you're not.
exterior. It's an exterior grade polyester, which I
Right,
didn't know existed, but apparently it does, and we can put this metal outside.
right.
Um, but
It will oxidize, and
and
that's
then
the
it will
thing.
patina naturally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It patinas naturally, and that is such a huge thing. I mean, I know I've been talking with some big companies about some exterior buildings right now, and I would love to see one land because it's such a huge deal when you think that when you use metal outside normally, it's not like you're using 20 gauge. You have to use something that's like 8 gauge because otherwise it'll twist. So the weight is immense. So they have to build their substructure to handle that weight. So now they can use aluminum or zinc, which are weighed nothing, and put a thin layer of this on, and they're saving millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars. And
That's why I'm getting into this Vero game. I'm trying to get in there.
well,
We are setting up to be able to apply Vero, at the highest levels and in production. Because
yeah,
I think you're right. I think once these designers and architects get an idea that once they can put, like the first designer that I ever talked to this about is the designer that we did the bronze wall with. Now
right,
we're
and
doing the
oh,
cabinets
yep,
with. And
yep,
when Robert, the inventor of this stuff, was here from the Netherlands, I was lucky enough to be able to sit down with the two of them together, and she
right,
was so interested. And sure enough, once you can understand, you can apply real metal to any surface. That's designer heaven,
oh,
right?
absolutely, absolutely.
But
When you
man, I tell
take,
them that stuff, and they like, oh, okay, and you can see that like it takes time to set in. Like, oh, you mean I can put metal on that? Like, oh, I can put metal on that? Like,
yeah,
you name it. If I can put primer on it, which is pretty much any substrate,
right,
I can put metal on it.
right. And next, in the beginning of this year, Aquafill is coming out, and Aquafill is a waterborne version, and you can put it on wall covering and roll it up. It's flexible.
Badass. Yeah,
You
the
can't,
sky's the limit with this stuff.
you
I'm
can't use
excited.
it. You can't use Aquafill outside,
Yeah.
but this version will polish to a very high polish, just not quite a mirror. You can't take a buffing oil to it, but you know, you've played with other metals, and I mean, I have a lot of customers that have played with the other competitors too, and I tell people go ahead and look, go try the other ones, because I want you to be certain that you have best, because the binder is everything, and you know that.
Yes, I do know that. And and,
And
and that's why it's cool. I think we've gone down a rabbit hole, and I don't want to beat the crap out of Vero because I think it is a very niche thing.
yep,
Um, and eventually, I think it will be I can see it being a more broadly used product, but
yep,
I think it's going to take some time
I agree.
before, the super
I
high end
agree.
people will use it, the adventurous people will use it, and little by little, because messing with polyester is that's
Yeah,
not
and
for the faint of heart.
that's why we're the waterborne version's coming out, which is the 2K urethane in is water. So, and with a 2K urethane, you don't have to use a catalyst. But if you don't use the catalyst, you can't polish it high. So that's the trade-off. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree, and I do believe that the Vero metal, when the wood slab guys understand that this is possible, because epoxy is cool, but it's a commodity now.
Oh, it
Everybody's,
is. It is.
you
Everybody's
know, I
doing it.
mean, there's this. What do you do with it? So when you can have this and add that to a wood slab table, oh my God, man,
It's cool.
it's very
So,
cool.
so to recap, if people want resources to try to better their knowledge, other than coming to ZK Finishing School, which they can always come do that. Send me a
Absolutely.
DM at ZK Finishing School, and you were going to have Robert out. We're going to do some classes. Where if I'm a young paint contractor or an old paint contractor and I'm trying to learn, what are some resources that you would recommend?
You know, there are some decent books out there, but they don't really they don't allow you to take a deep dive. They really don't. You know, one of the things that I'm working on, but I mean, you know, what's this my travel schedule? It's been hard. I'm actually in the process of writing a book. And my book was initially going to be mostly on reactive color, but now it's just going to be a chapter because I think the process is important. And so it's going to take a while for me to get there. But eventually I'm going to have a book, and it's not going to be geared towards beginners. And most wood finishing books are geared towards beginners. I'm not. You know, you have to have a basic understanding, or it's going to be over your head. I'm not going to do the deep dive. This is not PhD or master's level stuff, but this is somebody that has some time in the game and wants to better themselves. But you know, I would tell people to go and look under um, websites that are deal with conservation of furniture. There is like a Journal of American Conservation. I'll tell you what. I will make a list for you, and you can post it on your site because
All right.
there's too much to even
Okay.
explain,
That's
and it'll
fair.
give people a good idea of what to look for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then to recap, you advocate. Is it safe to say you advocate for three types of clear finishes: shellac, 2K urethane, and Odie's oil?
You know,
Other
well,
clears that you like?
I mean, there's other products out there. I mean, shellac is a type of product that there's a learning curve to that too, but it provides a look. I'm just saying that most American-made coatings are not the best. They're just not. I mean, most of the big brands I won't use. You know, I don't buy varnish that's made in America. It's just junk, you know? And um, I think the best coatings in the world primarily come from Italy and the Netherlands. Um, you know, that it's just clearly the best stuff. And I would really, again, take time to educate yourself what you're using. And that doesn't mean asking
Don't ask your
your,
sales rep.
don't ask your sales
I
rep.
got burned again last week. I'm supposed to know better. And I let some freaking sales rep convince me that this primer was this better than the primer I had asked for. And I get it. And Dan did his homework, talked to his guy and that knows this stuff. And sure enough, it's not. So now I have to return this primer, and it's a 2-part epoxy primer, and I have to return it and get the primer that I wanted to use in the first place.
The 2-part epoxy primer is great for metal. For metal.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. That's the only place I use it.
But, I mean, they use a ton of it on boats, wooden boats. Right?
Different.
So my one of my favorite primers, one of our favorite primers is All Grip 545.
Yes, that's a great product.
And there's a ton of that used on yacht hulls that are made of wood.
Right.
Right?
Right. But most epoxy primers, there's like everything, like I talk about glycols, there's different chemical variations of epoxy. I mean, there's waterborne epoxy. There's solvent-borne epoxies. I mean, and there's different chemistries of epoxies. And, even though there are basically 3 things, it's all the other crap they put in there that drives the bus.
And you get what you pay for with coatings. Almost always. Almost all, someone asked the question the other day about something. I was like, my answer is, which one costs more? If I don't know much, I'm going, which is the most expensive?
I will tell you this. When I was a painting contractor, I never bought paint based on price. Ever.
I buy the most expensive paint.
I buy paint based on the performance and the look. And if it cost me $150 a gallon 20 years ago, I didn't care. And now I understand that I don't play or never played in the market where I'm going to slam a house out in 2 days.
Yeah. Obviously, there's space for cheaper coating.
There's a space for that.
There's not a space when the client wants the best. That's what kills me is how many high-end clients who do want awesome don't get offered awesome.
No, they do not. I look at what painters use and I think, oh my God, man, why? They are paying the freight for quality and you're using this. Why? What? That client is going to eventually figure it out and be pissed. You won't, and it won't.
The problem is, unfortunately, I don't think that's true. Unfortunately, 99% of clients never find out they got burned. And that's why it's so prevalent that people aren't pushing the limits of the quality. How come there's not domestic manufacturers that are making $150 a gallon paint? Because most of the time, clients don't know to be mad when the coating fails 5 years later.
Right.
Right.
They've been taught to settle.
You just repaint your house every 5 years. That's just the standard.
I know, but
it's crazy.
If you do it right, it lasts 15.
Of course.
Or 20.
But when no one else is doing it with 15-year paint, it's way harder to sell. I sell exteriors with Fine Paints of Europe Eco, and the number of people who are actually into it is way smaller than you would hope because you're saving them money.
Yeah, when I was a painting contractor, the only way we would do an exterior is if a client would beg us, literally. They'd have to beg me to do a house. And I'm like, look, the guy down the street is going to use and tell you that he can do it for a third. And you'll paint that in the 15 years that my house will last, probably 3 to 4 times. So who's cheaper?
And that's what we talk about, price per year with exteriors. And that is the only way I've been able to sell it to clients is price per year. And let's look at what this paint job looks like over the years and how long it's going to last. But my point is, unfortunately, the standards of our clients generally is very low, and the expectations are very low.
I totally agree with you, man. I completely agree with you. But it's all about educating them.
Yes.
But
if
even
two guys show up to the bid, if 2 of the 3 guys they get their bid from, because everyone's getting 3 bids, if 2 of the guys show up offering the high quality, long lasting paint job, much better chance that they'll buy it. Right now, most of guys like me, I show up, I'm the only guy. So hopefully by screaming at this camera right now, sorry guys, it will elevate the craft and elevate the whole industry.
How long have you been in business now? How many years?
I've been painting for myself for about 9 years.
Okay, but how long
I've been in business for like 3.
Okay, so the problem for you is that you don't have a lot of long-term examples. You do fantastic work, Zach. I mean, I know that. And whatever a client gets you, they're getting the very best, period. I know that. But they don't. They don't. And so the premium that you want is not just because you use paint or coatings that cost more. It's the labor and the prep. And that's the part that also costs money. Paint as a percentage of your job is what, 10%? Maybe?
Yeah.
The
Yeah, most
actual
of the time.
coat, it's not much. It's the labor. That's where the cost is.
Totally.
But, guys that'll spend $40 for a gallon of paint and you're spending $150 for it. Not even a gallon of paint, 2.5 liters.
3/4.
But it matters. It matters.
It does. And I think over time, I'm hopeful that with social media, the spread of information is so much faster.
Oh,
The idea of what is good is elevating, right, on a daily basis. People are having to go and see on their feed and see examples of high quality work, right? Clients get to see, designers get to see what is good look like.
right.
And
Right.
I'm
And that
hopeful
matters.
that matters. The standards of the industry matter. And I think that it's going to keep elevating and elevating and elevating. And yeah, I do think that in 10 years from now, I'm going to have a much easier time selling this type of work.
I do believe you will. And as I said before too, if you ever take the deep dive in wood finishes and you take the path that I follow on the East Coast, my God, man, your business could just,
I can
crazy.
tell you, I on a weekly basis, I get my heart crushed when I go into. I was at a $6 million house. Guy just bought a $6 million house on the water,
Yep.
and is doing a $10 million renovation to it. It's an old mansion in Newport, and he bought it because he lives next door to a $20 million mansion, and he heard the kids in the backyard of the family who was about to inherit it. That's the story, and he bought it. Whatever.
Right.
His entire $20 million house has advanced gloss on all the trim.
Advance.
Advanced gloss.
Oh my
on a
God.
$20+ million home. They're about to do a $10 million interior renovation. They're going to take all of the trim, all the millwork off of a Newport mansion, which is an insane amount of millwork. They're taking it all off piece by piece and labeling every piece of wood because the client wants to put the original wood back up. They don't want to remove all the lead paint. They want to scrape the loose stuff, and they want all that character to go back into the home.
Okay.
And they want to put high gloss on it.
Right.
So you're talking about a $9-10 million budget.
Yep.
They're taking the wood off, putting it back on, right? Money is not an issue in this
Yeah.
case.
No.
It's cheaper to have it all milled new. And
Right.
the signed off sample is advanced gloss.
Did you give them a sample of your gloss?
Well, we're going to. And I'm not saying, and I don't, I'm not here to blame the painters because I know the painters. They're good people. But it's not their fault. It's like the whole industry, the standards are just at this point right now where unless you're crazy like me and you're just selling the crap, I work so hard to sell high level finishes. It's effort, right? It takes so much effort to get someone to buy one of our paint jobs. And now it gets easier over time, but there's first ones especially, it's so hard. And so I get when you're like, well, what do I got to do all this work? Or I could do less work and just do it. And it's water-based and my guys will do it fast. And like, so what if the sheen is 15 degrees lower? Like, I'm not blaming anyone, but that's the world that we live in.
Yeah, but advanced gloss, it's probably a 60 sheen, maybe, if that, over time, because it doesn't hold up. It doesn't look anything like FPE. I mean,
no, it doesn't.
I mean, when you give them a sample,
everybody knows that, but my point is just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, am I hopeful that they will see and touch that sample and go, this is a no-brainer? Yes, but I'm not convinced, right? Because not everyone sees the world through my eyes
No,
and through the painter's eyes.
but you've seen the advanced gloss in the room in the house next door, right?
I have not. I've not been in the house next door. I saw the sample door that they signed off on for this project.
Okay. And what's it look like?
It's fine. It's fine. It's good.
Really?
It's good.
So,
It's not
I
great.
mean,
It's not great. It's good.
there has to be quite a few layers of primer underneath that advanced gloss too.
I will say that it's acceptable and it's fine, but it's not amazing. And
I mean, when you're
that's kind
spending
of the whole
$10
point of all
million
this.
dollars, when you're spending 10 million, what's 60 more?
I don't,
That's insane, man.
I don't know, but, and it's not, I don't blame, it's just, that's the reality, I think, that of the world that we live in. And that's why I'm hopeful that more and more people, I'm hopeful that we'll start to see a small change in this stuff, you know?
Is this designer or an architect driven project, or is this strictly the client coming to you?
It's a tricky situation. It is an architect driven project.
Okay.
But it's, I don't know. It just is, these are the kind of things that I see that are frustrating.
Absolutely, man. It's educating them too.
And then it's waiting to see,
Huh?
you know, and
I totally understand. Believe me, man. I do, because I will tell you this. When I was a contractor, and when we would do samples, especially wood samples, because we didn't do paint that often. You know, a lot of times clients would choose the less expensive painter. And then when it would, get to the sample process, they were like, I hate this. And the contractor would say, we'll call Robert, but know this. He's going to be 2.5 times at a minimum more than them. Know that. But when he lays that sample on the table, you're going to gasp. And
and that's the question is, do you care? And how much do you care?
right.
And I have resigned myself from trying to change the world like that.
No, you can't.
Trying to change clients.
Yep.
I now am just like, if you want what we have, we're a perfect match.
Price.
If you don't, I get it. Call all the other painters. Like,
yeah.
But if you do, like we always say, like, whatever the heck, Wolf and Sub-Zero, we need to copy their marketing plan. Whatever the heck they did, they have got clients to spend the extra money on appliances better than anything I see in the home. Every job we go to, Wolf, they got $100,000 worth of appliances, right? They have gone
You
all out.
You want to learn a real marketing technique? Go to AGA stoves. AGA. That stove costs the same as a car. That stove starts at $30K for a stove.
But let's just say the appliance industry has figured out something.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because people are more likely to spend the money on appliances than they are on paint. And their appliances are, square footage wise, a very tiny portion of what they're going to be surrounded by in their home. But it's a reality today that people generally that are more apt to spend the extra money on appliances than they are on paint. And, whatever causes that, it's unfortunate to me as a painter. But I'm working to find the clients who do value us and give them the best that we can. And
you will. And the reality is for you, Zach, is once you have more examples under your belt, when you have 5-6 years into
I
this,
believe 10 years from now, I think I'm going to have such an easy time.
You will have, yes. And I was telling Aaron today that, it got to the point after I was so established that architects wrote me into their spec books. Like, you're using this guy. 3 or 4 builders are bidding.
I talked to a designer today.
You're doing this.
There's a big-time designer in New York for a big project in Boston, and she's like, these parts of the project are yours.
That's awesome,
or essentially, like she can't guarantee them because the GC has to buy them.
Sure.
But the designer who is speccing it is saying, we're speccing you. And
That's
that's like the first
golden,
time.
dude.
That's the
I know.
goal, right? But that
I
comes
know.
with lots of hard work and a body of work and reputation and all things that take forever to get.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I know when I was chatting with him, I just said, there's other vendors here, but I think Zach is best suited for this one. And you should go here. And so I'm thrilled that it's worked out for you.
and it's because of hard work that and it's like what I always talk about in business. It's building competitive advantage
Right.
into your business model, right?
Right.
You can't tomorrow go get equipped to do this project, right?
No.
You can't cheat competitive advantage. You can't buy competitive advantage.
No. No.
It has to be built into the model. So whatever you're
Absolutely.
doing, whether it's high end, whether it's middle of the road but super efficient, I couldn't compete against that guy who
No.
crushes new construction at $8 a square foot. I can't compete against him. He has competitive advantage.
Right.
I wish I had understood it sooner, so I could have been working in a more concentrated direction. But now that we are, I'm starting
Right.
to see the payoff. And, I'm hopeful for the industry as a whole that with social media, we can continue to push clients' expectations higher.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Honestly, if social media had been around when I was a contractor, I can't. I mean, it would save so much headache. Because again, what I did was so niche driven. Oh my God.
yeah,
People still today, 10 years later, still don't know this is even possible. So yeah, I commend you, Zach. I think, as I've said many times, I see so much of myself in you, and I really enjoy the path you're on, and that you're really focusing on craft. And that is really, for me, everything. And,
against lots of against lots of negative inputs,
oh,
right?
absolutely.
Most of the
Absolutely.
world is like, what are you doing? Price.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with it too. I did. I mean, when I was a contractor and, when I started really hitting it hard was like 1999. Back by 1999, an average job back then was 100 grand. 100 grand.
yeah,
21 years ago is,
and you can't get there without the hard, slow slog of building reputation and building body of work. And
yeah,
that
that
sucks.
was
And it's
almost 10 years for me to
yeah,
get to there.
yeah.
So yeah, you need the body of work. People need to see that you are a stand-up guy, that, when you say I'm doing X, X happens. And
And
yeah,
also,
it
like we
takes
said, all this
time.
knowledge that we're talking about. It's when you go to the meeting with the knowledge, which you cannot show up at a meeting and then Google stuff, right? You have to have already done the work.
Right.
And that's where, like, I hope people understand, like, the way to elevate is to do the work first of knowledge, practice, confidence, right? I can't sell these jobs having not done it before, right? We
Right.
did these jobs and didn't sell them. I just did them, ate it, took it on the chin,
Learned. You learn.
learned, and then
Right.
then eventually you show up to the big leagues and you've done the work.
Right.
And there's no shortcutting it.
No, there is no shortcutting it. It is a total process. And as we talked about early, you are going to take hits, and you're going to get knocked on your ass, and you're going to say, God, why, maybe I should just walk away. But you can't. You need to stand back up and go forward, because the knowledge you gained, is invaluable. You know what not to do.
Still make the same mistake 5 times.
Yeah.
Sometimes you make it 4. You try not to make it twice, but yeah,
Yeah. But there's
I say
employees involved too, even with good staff, people make mistakes. And,
everybody makes mistakes.
I mean, I've made plenty. I mean,
Make
God,
them on the regular.
It's part of the process. It's just hopeful that you have the knowledge to go backwards and fix them and go forwards again. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All
So,
right. Well, we close up every ZK live with 3 questions.
okay.
The first two are easy. The last one's hard.
Okay.
The first question I have for you is, what is your favorite piece of paint paraphernalia? It could be a tool, piece of equipment, you name it. Could be a coating, whatever you prefer.
My
Something in our
favorite,
world.
actually, I think, like the 5-in-1 tool is something that most people don't really realize how valuable that thing is. It really is. I mean, you can use it virtually every day. And, there was always a thing when I had staff is when you didn't have a putty knife or you didn't have a screwdriver. But honestly, that thing can solve all those problems. So it's a great tool to have. It really is.
It's a great answer. I agree. 5-in-1 is a beautiful thing. You always got to have a 5-in-1.
Right.
All right. I need a DIY tip for wood finishing. Like, what's a big mistake you see people make that could be easily remedied?
I think that one thing that people think they do well but really don't do well is sand wood. I don't think people know how to sand wood properly. I see it all the time. And I don't think people sand wood long enough between grits. And you really can't skip grits. And when you go to a project, let's say there's cabinets on site, and the cabinet makers sanded the wood, but they've been sitting there for 3 weeks. You have to sand it again. If you don't sand it again, you're not going to get the outcome you want. And sanding is a skill set. And if you sand wood long enough, it'll actually take color deeper. I know that sounds backwards. Sanding wood hard will make it the surface accept color, stain, and dye deeper, and it matters.
Love it. All right. Now I need you to dig deep.
Okay.
I need you to I need we're in a therapy session. There's nobody else here. You can share your deepest, darkest, most embarrassing moment in the painting industry. The biggest calamity. You may have never told anyone about this in your life. In fact, we'd prefer that.
Wow, I'm trying to think. I've had
I
a lot
need
of
to just
major
like,
screw-ups,
holy crap, I painted the wrong house. It's hard to mess up more than that. Everyone who's been in this game long enough has made a crazy, huge mistake.
Yeah. I mean, the one that I think was the most costly for me was actually in the beginning when I was really starting to learn about shellac, and there's no knowledge out there about shellac. And I shellacked these cabinets in this house, and there was a ton of them. It was a huge house. And I'm like, I'm going to use shellac. It's going to be beautiful. And then I coated it with varnish. And we went to paint the walls and taped the cabinets off, painted the walls and pulled the tape, and all the finish came with it. And all the finish came with it because we used waxy shellac. And varnish does not stick to waxy shellac because there's wax in it. And we ended up having to strip that entire cabinet job and start over because we used waxy shellac instead of de-wax shellac. So yeah, hey, there you go. I threw it out there. That was a costly mistake, but you know what? I only had to learn that one time. And that was when I was taking the deep dive shellac. So trust me, I've had horror stories. That was a pretty expensive one.
All right, so we didn't go far enough into de-wax shellac. So let's wrap up with just one more deep dive on de-wax shellac, non-de-wax shellac. How do you tell the difference? What the heck is the difference? And why does it matter?
Okay, so when you have waxy shellac, when there's wax content in the shellac, coatings don't stick to it. You can mechanically get it to bond, but it doesn't molecular bond. So when you take like an oil varnish and put it on top of waxy shellac, it's not a bond. So you could literally like take tape and press it hard and pull it off, and you pull your varnish right off. And you can, and if the varnish sticks to the shellac, it's a disaster waiting to happen. So all wax has a content of say 5 to 10% of wax in it. It's naturally part of the shellac. And so when you de-wax it, you are removing that. You're decanting it. And so it gets down to less than 0.5% or less than 1%. And now you can use it on a variety of substances, and you can put shellac virtually on any substrate and put catalyzed lacquer on, if you put it on thin enough. If you put shellac on like 2-pound cut and put lacquer on it, it'll curdle it. But if it's thin, it works great. And, you know, the coatings companies will tell you, well, that's just not possible. And I'm like, you know, go pound sand, dude. You know, I've got decades of experience behind me that say different. So again, listen to your guy.
Why would one use de-waxed shellac? Why does it exist?
Okay, so waxy shellac is cloudier. So that is a clear indication. So when you look at original French polished piece of furniture, that is almost always waxy shellac. And you get a deep, rich shine, but the wood is a little cloudy. But when you take the same de-waxed shellac, take the wax out, and go after that high shine, you have clarity. And that's the difference.
So
it's the clarity.
So de-waxed shellac if de-waxed shellac is better?
It's better in certain instances. I mean, when you're doing old antiques, they didn't have de-waxed shellac back then. And so, and again, the time of year you have a harvest, it and how it's processed changes the color too, because shellac in its pure form is either black, orange, or orange red. That is, any other color you see today has been processed or bleached. Blonde shellac does not exist in nature. That has been decolorized, as they call it.
So for all of us, most of us, we just never want to use wax shellac. Is that
for a painting contractor, you never want to use waxy shellac. And in a can today, all shellacs have wax except for seal coat.
Seal coat is the de-waxed shellac. If you go from Home Depot, the shellac,
there's wax in it.
It's waxed.
Yes, and you are waiting for a problem.
Yes.
You're going to suffer.
And the cans almost alike. They're very similar.
Yeah, they look very similar, and it doesn't say there's wax in it.
It just doesn't say waxed.
It doesn't say waxed.
Yeah.
Because all shellac in their natural forms have wax. It's only if it says seal coat, de-waxed shellac, that the shellac has been removed. Every other shellac, consider it has wax in it. Guaranteed.
Boom. At that point, we talked about waxes earlier. Same concept with waxes. Not going to take a top coat chemically. No chemical bond to a wax. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so if we waxed our bronze wall, if someone were to try to go put a clear coat over the top of it or paint it, say you want to go prime and paint that wall,
nope.
You're going to have an
forget
issue.
it. Yeah, forget it. Not happening.
Interesting. All right. Well, Robert, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Zach. I mean, I love you do the podcast, and it's great to share knowledge. So thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. I'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.